So the thing is, like, I don't actually even know what we're going to start working on, because I think I think what we were doing like last time ultimately was like having a discussion. But what I mean is, what we decided, I think, last time was that we would basically like see if there were any other things to wrap up first before we potentially move to Vulkan, right? So in other words, we kind of like, I don't know, I still said I would run like a poll or something, but I think people are mostly on board with that. So like I think that it's probably like looking like we are going to switch the engine, switch Hazel 2D to Vulkan before we progress, just because that makes the most sense. Obviously that means we won't have to do it later when the code base grows. Why would we do that? Hey, Dup, thank you for the sub. Appreciate the support. But yeah, like ultimately it's just going to make more sense to do that, I think, because as the code base grows, as we implement more and more features, it's just going to be harder to kind of do that conversion. So I would like to get that done like ASAP, but we can still kind of wrap up the existing features that we were working on, like the 2D physics. I think that definitely needs to be wrapped up, and we should probably like have a bit of a talk about how we're going to like design this new iteration of the engine, so to speak. Vague Lobster, thank you. 23 months. Yeah, next time 2 years. That's right. 23 months of subbing. Appreciate the support, man. Yeah, so because of that, I think that it's probably going to be best for us to just jump into the code pretty quickly here. And then like we're going to ultimately like start by just taking a look at like what we need to do for the 2D physics system, like that we decide to even do now, because we obviously don't have to do any of this. It's not like a render API is going to change that. It's just that the reason why I'm even having this idea, to be completely honest, let me just tweet this out real quick as well. Oh, my W key on my keyboard, my W key has just like stopped working. Every now and then it just doesn't work. Like, it's really weird. I don't know what it is. So I'm struggling to tweet this. But yes, so what I want to do is basically like, and what inspired this is by looking at, you know, the fact that obviously in terms of Hazel, right, like we have like the GitHub repository, we obviously have this physics branch over here that we kind of started, right? That's the kind of normal thing. It's got added physics collider visualization was the last commit. We can now kind of obviously I didn't save that scene, did I? Well, whatever. Anyway, if I turn this on, you can see we can visualize the colliders of the circle, and I think this one's deliberately offset, by the way. Yeah, it is. So that's why it's there. But anyway, point is we can obviously visualize the colliders for both circles and you know, like boxed colliders, which is pretty much, well, we can have like polygonal colliders, I guess, as well. But this is this is a little bit more kind of you know, in terms of like the base feature set that we decided to implement. So we've got those two features, and then like obviously like I think from here on out, the next stuff we're going to probably work on are probably going to be like maybe some more rendering related features. So stuff that is kind of renderer adjacent. So for example, like, you know, I would like to do things like render text maybe. I would like to be able to have this current texture, because we can render textures at the moment, but it's a bit weird. We just drag the texture into the sprite renderer. We don't really have like some kind of well-designed asset system or anything like that. So we are going to have to do like more systems work at some point as well. But I think the next big thing was going to probably be like C#, right? And adding scripting support. I actually want to kind of take a look, because I believe there is a Trello, isn't there? No idea what this is, man. We had a Trello, which I'm just going to dig up now. We had a Trello that had a roadmap, I believe, with all of the features that we were going to do. And in what order? Yeah, I think it's this, I guess, right? This looks like it. Okay, so this is our Trello. So we do have like some kind of plan that to follow. It's not like I'm freestyling this. So integrate Box 2D with pre-make, add physics components, visualizing class simulation. Oh, okay, so we want to be able to simulate physics without actually playing the scene, I guess. And then other. Joints, constraints, other stuff that Box 2D supports. So simulation would be kind of cool. I think we're going to work on that today. Visualizing colliders is done as far as I'm aware. I mean, I would like maybe some more controls. So maybe you want to change the color of the collider visualization, just because that will mean that like if you change the color of the visualization, like you might need to change it if your scene is green, for example, and you don't want, you want it to be a little bit more visible, right? So for that reason, maybe we do want to actually change it. But those are all like little things. So I ultimately don't really care too much about any of that. We can do them later. I just, like, my main goal, as I mentioned, is going to be basically just to take this branch and merge it back into master. And then from there, we're going to make a Vulkan branch and start the Vulkan work. Is kind of what I'm thinking. And that's probably going to be the next big thing that we actually do. And then that'll be a huge engine re-architecture, I think, that will involve multi-threading. I think it's probably best for us to just dive in and do multi-threading as we do this. So in other words, we're going to introduce the render thread and have IMGUI also be multi-threaded. That's going to be a blast, by the way. We're going to introduce IMGUI with Vulkan being all multi-threaded in that kind of, at that time, right? So that's going to be fun. And that's going to be a major project that's probably going to take several months, I imagine. So, yeah. So I think, in other words, I'd like to wrap this physics branch up, merge it back into master, and then have like a good kind of new, starting point, so to speak. So let's do maybe simulation. So simulation in Hazel Dev, it's actually kind of good, I guess, because I could probably... Where's my Hazel Dev master? I don't know if Hazel... Real Hazel Master is in any mood right now, but we'll check it out. We'll see what's there. But we can take a look at how simulation works in that. Yeah, okay, this looks okay. So what do we have here? Scenes. We've got physics 2D test. Does that still work? Yeah, so I don't know why the bloom's so extreme. Let's just turn down that bloom a bit. So if we hit play, oof. Seems a bit weird. Oh, and that doesn't really work. Yeah, I think simulation's a bit weird for 2D physics inside Hazel Dev, but we'll try... we just have a physics test. Oh, this doesn't work either. What's going on? Peter, have you broken Hazel? I can't load certain scenes. This seems weird. Physics test doesn't load for me because of some kind of vertex buffer issue. That's new. And then also... was it physics stress, actually? Maybe physics stress is what I'm thinking of. So physics stress, I think, is... yeah, this whole thing. So that actually gets spawned in through a C# script, so we can't quite simulate that. But that does look pretty cool. Especially after the frame rate is stabilized. But yeah, so maybe we just have like, what's geometry test? Interesting. Anyway, let's go back to the prefab sandbox. And so basically the idea is if we have some sort of geometry, such as this capsule, and it's not, well, this is a static mesh. Which, static mesh, can they have rigid bodies? Did we make that happen? I'm on kind of an older version. No, that just disappeared. What the heck is going on? Oh no, there it is. So if we add a rigid body there... Is that even gonna work? Yeah. So you can see that this capsule collider now... what I can do is, instead of like having to hit play and seeing like what the physics looks like here, I can actually just press the simulate physics button, and then you can see it will play the scene, but without like running the C# scripts and without, you know, without doing any kind of, without, you know, taking control of the camera and doing the game side thing. Like, it still renders using the editor camera, and then obviously we can just see what the physics looks like in our view without actually having to play the game. So that's basically like what we want to do as far as simulating physics goes. So that's the button we want. So what I want to do probably is I'm just going to steal like okay, so let's talk about how we're going to design and implement this feature in like the next half hour or so probably. What I want to do is basically probably steal the icon for the physics simulation thing from Hazel Dev, because that makes sense obviously. That way we don't need to make our own icon. And the idea is, if we look at the code base and what actually happens when we hit play at the moment, it's actually going to be very, very similar. It's just there's basically going to be two runtime states. There's going to be a simulation state and a play state. That's how it works in Hazel, in real Hazel. So what that means is that, yeah, so let's have a look at how play works inside Hazel 2D. So basically all that happens is we set scene state to scene state play. So when this button gets pressed, this is the button being pressed, the play button, then if the state is currently edit, then it will change it to be, it will call this on-scene play function, which will change the state to be play, will set the active scene to a copy of the current editor scene, and it will call on runtime start, which probably does some important things that we are also going to need for simulations, such as actually creating a physics world. So at the moment, it looks like the only thing that on runtime start actually does, as you can see, is like physics stuff. So therefore it's actually going to be like, we're going to have to basically call that as well. We're going to probably call it on simulation start though, because in the future there might be like some C# scripts that need to get, you know, scripting engine stuff needs to get initialized. There might be some other, you know, stuff, assets might need to get loaded or whatever, right? Which we don't necessarily need, obviously, if we're just trying to simulate the scene and not actually run it, but it's still going to be important to obviously set up all of the physics and do basically the entirety of this current function. So we're going to call that, and then obviously you can see the context changes to this active scene because we have copied the scene into a new scene. This, what happens here is going to be identical. So hopefully this is kind of making sense now. I mean, that's basically it. And then the other thing that you need to know actually is that when it comes to doing update stuff, right? So when we're inside update and then we're like, you know, updating the scene, you can see also depending on if we're in edit or play, we basically might do some extra stuff for the editor, such as like this stuff, but then also we do on update editor versus on update runtime. Now this does rendering as well, and that's why it's kind of important. On update runtime though, we're still going to do some extra things for runtime, such as updating scripts, which in our case is just native scripts because we don't have C# in Hazel 2D yet. So that stuff does not need to exist, does not need to be done, obviously. Physics does need to be ticked, and then stuff like finding the main camera does not need to be done. And then if we find the main camera, you can see we edit it. So we're not going to do any of that. We're still going to render it from the point of view of the camera. Therefore, it's going to be very similar to on update editor with this. The only difference is we also do need to actually update the physics. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it though. It's going to be really easy to implement. We're just going to dive right into it and do it. So what I'm going to do is inside scene, we're going to add those two functions. So we're going to have on, instead of on runtime start, we're going to have on simulation start as well, right? And then instead of on update runtime, we're going to have on update simulation. So we have basically three of these: on update editor, on update simulation, on update runtime. Runtime is kind of the important one. And then I guess I'll also do an on simulation stop, just in case there are different things. So simulation will be kind of its own thing. Hey, fan of Cherno, thank you for subbing for 15 months. Appreciate the support. Thanks for being a fan. On update simulation is going to do that. So let's start by implementing these. Again, they're going to be really easy to do. And on update simulation with the time step. So let's start with the first one. So on simulation start, as I mentioned, at the moment, we're basically going to do the same thing as this. Now, if you look at this, what this is basically initializing 2D physics. So we're going to just create a function out of that. So on start, you know, we'll say on physics 2D start or init or create or whatever. But basically this function here, right, is going to do this. It's going to create the physics world and all the colliders based on stuff. So this is where we call on physics 2D start. And then that way, obviously, we don't have to duplicate any code. We can just call it again. Pretty simple stuff. So on simulation start is also going to call that. Right now on runtime stop, you can see stops the physics. So similarly, we're going to go down here and create an on physics 2D stop. I'm going kind of fast because this stuff is obviously very simple, I hope, for most people to follow along with. So I'm just trying to run through it because you should already know this stuff if you followed along with the series. So on simulation stop, and then obviously on runtime stop's going to call that, and the code that it's going to call is this. So we're going to delete the physics world and set it to null pointer so we can easily reuse it later, and we can make sure that we can check if it's deleted or not by seeing if it's null pointer if we need to, just keeping it clean. On update simulation, so this is going to, as I mentioned, it's going to more or less do what the editor does. In fact, that's why we're going to actually take in an editor camera into this, which is something I forgot to do. And then what we're going to do is, so here what I'm going to do, right, is excuse me, I'm more or less going to take a look at what update editor and update runtime actually do. And then I'm going to try and find like the common code, because at the moment we've obviously got like this whole thing where we basically rendered the scene for the editor. Then we've got this other thing where we rendered the scene obviously for the runtime, and then we're going to have another one where we render the scene for the simulation. So I don't want to have 3 copies of that code, which, fun fact, is what we have in Hazel Dev at the moment. So that's why, like, yeah, it's not a good idea to do that. So we obviously know we need to draw sprites and circles everywhere. The big thing that changes is going to be the fact that this obviously takes a main camera and camera transform. This takes in, I think, an editor camera instead. An orthographic camera, apparently. Why is it an orthographic camera? Because that's not even an orthographic camera. Oh, I don't know. Maybe I'm just looking at the wrong thing. So what is that? Renderer, right? Renderer 2D. Yeah, so it actually does take an editor camera. At which point it provides a view projection matrix. Yeah, so like, I mean, we probably will try and reduce that code duplication. What else do we do though? Yeah, because see, this stuff is going to be identical, isn't it? Unless it interfaces with the camera, it's basically going to be the same. So we could just like, you know, draw sprites, draw circles. We could even divide it on this kind of granularity. If we wanted to, we could make it like, we could make a function called like draw sprites, draw circles, you know, whatever. Because this obviously goes through sprite render component, draws them. This goes through circle render component, draws them. And then that way we could keep, because the thing is, this does differ from this. It calls different functions. Here it calls render begin scene with, you know, the overloaded function with 2 arguments. Here it just calls it with the editor camera. So they are actually different. We could combine them if we really wanted them, well, if we really wanted to, but I'm not gonna do that, I think. So so what do we do here? What do we do here? Draw sprites, draw circles. I don't know. What we might do, what I want to do actually is I want to do like a, I just want to kind of make like a render scene function, and I want it to take in possibly like a camera, right? And maybe this should be like the non-runtime scene or something. Because obviously for simulation and for editor, they're both going to render from this specific camera. Whereas runtime is going to have to fetch its own camera. So, and then, but the only thing that's needed for is begin scene. So yeah. What code color palette is this? This is based on, what's it called? This is, I think, Yeah, this is based on a theme called Grovebox, which is quite a common thing. But I've actually tweaked quite a bit of it. So it's based on the Grovebox color palette, and then I kind of made it myself. The actual like theme for Visual Studio. So I don't know, I might put it up if people are interested, but I haven't. This is kind of a new thing I did like last week. So yeah, I quite like it. It's quite kind of nice. It's just a bit different. Though I had the background a bit lighter because the background I set to be basically the same as the Visual Studio background, because don't think you can change the Solution Explorer background thing. But yeah, it's similar to the Visual Assist theme, but it's actually it's a little bit different. The color palette's a bit different, and I played around with some other stuff as well. Okay, so yeah, so I don't know. I don't know what we're gonna do with this, because I don't really want to separate these things out maybe too much, but I can. Slowly becoming a Vim user. Yeah, not quite there yet, but I do like the color palette. I couldn't figure out how to change the background for Visual Studio's Solution Explorer. Can do it obviously for this and for the output window, but not for Solution Explorer, so I'm not sure. David, you got a long name, but thank you for the Prime subscription, appreciate it. And join the Vim side. Nah, I don't think so. I like my keyboard with my lack of W. See, it's working now. It's behaving. Anyway. So where were we? We were... Yeah, trying to decide what on earth to do with this. I'm not gonna lie, this is a bit annoying. But let's copy this and we'll put it onto... Did we make that function? No, we didn't yet. So render scene. So render scene can do that with editor camera, and that's kind of all we need to do. And because we've kind of done that as well, now we can kind of go at least to like update editor and stuff, and basically get rid of this. We can just take in our camera, and rendering shouldn't need the time step, so we don't need that. And then you can see we can do the same thing here in our update simulation. Now, you can see that was the entirety of the function. So this actually did no updating, so to speak, because the scene's not running. But obviously for simulation, it needs to partially run. So that's why we need to have, you know, render scene. Render scene can do its thing, and that's fine. But simulation, on-update simulation, apart from, you know, rendering, which is cool and all, it needs to actually, you know, update stuff. Now, the way this is going to work when we use Vulkan and when the engine's going to be multi-threaded is render scene's obviously not going to do this stuff. Like all of this stuff that draws stuff, like we have a choice. We can either do this calculation on the render thread, or we can still do it on the main thread, but then just submit the actual Vulkan commands and build the Vulkan command buffer on another thread, which we probably will do. I actually don't know how Real Hazel does it at the moment, like whether or not it actually segregates like this stuff into, you know, if it submits this stuff to the renderer as is, or if it calculates it first. I think it probably does calculate it on the main thread. By calculated, I mean specifically like, you know, this stuff, right? Like when it actually goes through the vertices and puts them all, because this is all rendered in one batch. But we'll see. I suspect we'll have to work some stuff out with both Vulkan and this stuff, because it's still OpenGL here. Anyway, if we go back to scene, getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. What I'm getting at is that when we have the update runtime, so update scripts we're not doing, but physics does need to be updated. So if we go to update simulation, this is where we actually do update the physics. And of course they should be there because we started them. So this is basically the only real difference. And then we'll leave on update runtime as is, because that's fine as well, I think. Okay, so now what we can do, that's it, by the way, guys. Like, that's honestly it. It's really, as I mentioned, it's really easy. Let me just make sure that we have on simulation stop. It's just that. Same as runtime stop, really, because that's the only thing it needs to do at this point in time. So in editor layer now, what I'm going to do is basically, I guess, duplicate these things, right? So we're gonna have a simulation play and stop, which I'm gonna copy that stuff. Simulation play and stop. We're gonna add another mode here called simulate. So on simulation play, no, I guess, sorry, on simulation play, on scene play and stop, I guess on scene simulate is what I kind of should have done. Because I think stop's going to be identical, actually, which is kind of nice. So we're just going to do basically on scene simulate. On scene stop remains the same. This is the only new function here, and it's going to do the same thing, but it's going to call on scene on simulation start, right? Now, here's the problem though. Active scene on runtime stop, that's wrong. So it's going to be either runtime stop or simulate stop or simulation stop, right? So we might have to call a different function. And of course, the one we call is going to depend on what the scene state currently is. So if it was play, then we call this one, else we're going to call on simulate stop. And we could, on simulation stop, we could put that in like a switch statement. Maybe we should, because that's what everything else does. Like as in, that's what we actually do in our update here. But maybe the reason why I did that was because I knew there'd be 3, and usually my rule of thumb is if there's 3, then I pretty much always make it a switch. But if there's 2, you can just keep it like that. So whatever, we'll keep it like that. Runtime stop or simulate stop, I guess, if the scene state is that. If the scene state is something else, that's a bit weird. It shouldn't be. We could assert if we wanted to, right? So we could do like a core assert and just make sure that scene state has to be either play or simulate, right? So this is the simulate one, right? Maybe that's a good idea. Just chuck that in there. Then we'll set it to edit. We'll restore that, restore the context, and that looks pretty good to me. So now all that's missing is the button. So the play button, icon play. So this is where we press it. If it's edit, then we're gonna do this one. So, and then the icon, we actually use, I guess the icon's render ID becomes the ID of the button, which is fun. But anyway, I guess we might as well just load the icon, right? So icon simulate, and we need some kind of asset manager for the editor side of things as well. So simulate, I don't know who made the one in Hazel 3D, whoever made that simulate button, but we are stealing it. Maybe it was Peter or Jay. Those are my 2 guesses. Simulate, I don't even know where it is. Simulate button. Is this still the one we're using? It looks kind of weird when it's by itself. But anyway, let's go back to here. And where are we? Resources? No, not resources. Hazelnut. I was there. Icons. Simulate button. So that's what it looks like, apparently. Simulate button.png. All right. Am I happy with that? That's the real question. Maybe. Maybe that's good. So now we should just be able to actually icon play. So again, this is going to depend, obviously. Let's just copy these. Because I don't know how this is going to work exactly for the simulate one. So we kind of want same line, probably. And then we're going to use an icon again. It's going to be either stop or not. The problem is if it's stop and that one's stop. No, that one should be play. I kind of want to set maybe my own one, maybe push an IMGUI ID or something, because this is a bit lol. But we'll see. So anyway, so this is going to obviously be on scene simulate. This is going to be on scene stop still, if it's simulate. And then we're going to use, the icon's going to depend. If it's edit, then we'll use wait, hang on. Should it still be stop? Maybe. But anyway, so simulate or stop. I don't know if, I think in Hazel it actually goes light. It doesn't actually change into the stop icon. So we might actually not do that here. We'll just see what this does first though. And yeah, theoretically we now have a way to begin simulation. So I'm a little scared, but let's see what happens. And we probably need to make sure that if there's an empty scene or whatever, it doesn't, I mean, that'll still work, right? Oof, they're on top of each other. All right, let's fix that. Oh, because we're setting the cursor position. Do we really need to do that? I don't think we need to do that the second time. Okay, yeah, we're good. Okay, so if I go to scenes, physics 2D, and hit simulate, okay, so they both turn on, which is probably not a good thing. Why? Doesn't that set it to simulate? Ah, because this checks to see if it's edit or not. So if scene state is edit, if it's not edit, so if it's play or simulate, it kind of flips over to that. So, yeah. So what do I want to do? I guess I want to if it's edit or simulate, that's a bit annoying though. We might want to clean this up a bit. If it's edit or simulate is play, and we also have to handle if you go from simulate to play, I guess. And then this is going to be if it's edit or play, right? Yeah, we need a better way to do this. Play. But that, anyway, that didn't seem to work, so let's see what the problem is. What's your problem? Why? Okay, so we can now kind of do that. You can see play works. This does not work. There's nothing to render, apparently. So let's kind of debug this. I'm in release mode, unfortunately. But, it's because I didn't actually make it do anything, bro. So, we need to make it do something. So on update, obviously, if the scene state is simulate, nothing happens. So we want to obviously have something happen. So, this, I don't know why this exists, to be completely honest. On editor camera update still does need to happen. And then obviously we do on update, on update simulation. And that's it. So I need to do that. Homer, thank you for the nice message. Glad that my stuff could help you out. All right, so physics 2D, play. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so you can see what's up now. We have a way to play the scene, which you can see the camera changes, obviously, because we're playing the scene. But then also we can do simulate, and you can see we can still kind of move this around, and then this stuff still kind of, you know, does stuff. And I don't know if we can, we probably can't change stuff, can we? Because that doesn't actually, we need to hook up the UI so that it actually tells box 2D to change the position and stuff. And then that way, obviously, we could actually set stuff up, which is going to be pretty cool. But still, this is nice because you can obviously test the scene from wherever you are without actually, you know, hitting play and then playing the game or whatever. And this is especially useful if obviously you have like scripts running that might position elements around or might, like, I don't know, bring up a main menu or something, and you don't want any of that. You just want to be like, does my physics work? So simulation's quite useful, and I quite like it for that. Now, yeah, so we do have the two stop buttons, which is a bit annoying. Also, it seems like this does nothing if we're in simulate. I don't know why. If we hit, like, this is where the states are going to kind of come into play here. I think if we're in like a if we're in a simulation state, then we, like, what happens, okay, so what will happen here? So if it's edit or simulate, icon play is the icon, and then when we press it, okay, so it's only going to do it if it's, yeah. Okay, so see, this is where we can probably introduce, well, there's see, I can't type the W key. We could probably do this here, I guess. I don't know. On scene play. Should we do something if it's already? I guess we can. I guess we can just do a little. If scene state happens to be simulate, then you need to stop. Right? What is it? On scene stop. And similarly, we could do if we're playing, then you need to stop, basically. And then that way we can transition between the two, as long as scene state. So if scene state equals edit, we do play. Otherwise, if scene state is play, so play stop. Well, that makes sense probably. But yeah, this really needs to basically be the condition, I think. Which we could just copy. Whatever. Do that. Nice and clear. No need to overcomplicate things. Alright. So now if I go play, you can see play as a scene, and I can kind of switch between simulate and play now. Right, so that's something I just wanted to double check that that worked. And you can see it does. Okay, so now let's just make sure that if we have a blank scene, that also works. So I don't want it to crash like that. Alright, and the reason for that is because it looks like so copy fails, because other is, okay, we actually have a blank scene. So probably shouldn't have a blank scene. I don't know if it's a good thing to have. Like, why do we have a blank scene? Because when we launch it, why would we have a blank scene? Shouldn't we have just an empty scene? But this is apparently not a scene. See, I can't, there's no scene loaded. Okay, well, that's easy to check. I just wasn't sure what we wanted to do with that. But I guess we can just do, if we come down here, these icons, this icon toolbar stuff, like, it really only makes sense if we have an active scene. So what we could do is we could grade them out or something like that. Hey, Vex Effects, thanks for the raid. If we, like, what we could do is we could do some sort of I don't know. Hey Peter, how do we disable I'm GUI stuff? Because I don't know if this works, but like there was a way to disable entire blocks in Hazel Dev. I don't know if that's because of some custom stuff. Like, what is disabling like in I'm GUI in general? Hopefully he you know, says something, because I don't know. But I guess we could disable it. I would like to kind of grade out maybe. If we don't have a scene loaded, just so it's clear at least, we don't have it's custom stuff. Okay, great. Wonderful. Well, that sucks. We should probably, it does involve a little bit of custom code to make work properly, but don't use item flags disabled as an I'm GUI function or something. Oh, there's an I'm GUI function for disabling stuff. Whoops. Disabled. There's button flags disabled, text disabled, item flags disabled. This all sounds like bad news, according to you. I don't know. Is there really, like, don't use any flags? Is there really no, like, why is this not like a common thing? I don't know what version of I'm GUI we're on either. We'll just do that. So now we can't press them if there's no scene, but we obviously need feedback. We could tint it a color, right? Nah. Yeah, it's just a bit disgusting. was the default? 1. I don't know, something like that. Begin disabled and disabled. But that's... Okay, that was wrong. And it still works, what? How? There's no active scene. What? That should have not done anything. Weird. Yeah, apparently there is an active scene. Oh, so there is an active scene. So did I just do that for nothing? But this is empty. What? Oh, we're passing an editor scene? Not active scene. So what's active scene? What? Oh, we just create an active scene. Oh, that's rough. So there's no editor scene. This is a bit of a bug. So what we probably should do is set editor scene, right, to active scene. And actually, by that I mean kind of the opposite. We really want to create an editor scene and then make that the active scene. It doesn't really matter, but it just makes more sense. So this was all a mistake. Cherno, what are your thoughts on Apple computers? I like Apple computers. I have a MacBook Pro, which I use for some things, like just a 13-inch one. It's very nice. Battery lasts forever. It just works. Does that one have fans? I don't even know. The M1 chip is great, and their new chips are even better. They're good. They're great. And I don't know. I don't mind the operating system. I still like to develop on Windows, though. Okay, so we have an actual scene now. So the problem is what then? There is no problem, I think. This should just work now. No, it's still upset because scene is null pointer. Why are we still dealing with null pointer, man? On overlay render. What even is that? Editor layer on overlay render. I legitimately don't know what that is. And why is this failing? Oh, the scene inside the entities now? Oh, because this is null. Is this null? This isn't null. So then it should be returning that. But see, the scene inside camera, the scene inside this is null, yet, oh, so it must have returned a invalid handle or something. Right. Anyway, what it's trying to say is that there is no camera. But what's overlay render? Oh, that's for like colliders. I see what it is now. That seems to make sense. Yeah, so what do we do? So overlay render, where does that come from? From here. Well, yeah, I mean, I guess it doesn't make sense. So, hang on. The thing is, though, this obviously does have ent null, right? So shouldn't we should probably be able to try and retrieve this primary camera entity like we're doing, and then just say that if, because we should have that, right? We should have a bool. Yeah, we do. So we should just do that, I guess, right? And the problem is it's gonna, oh, right. And then obviously, no, well, if we don't have a camera, we can't render anything. So we could just say if not camera return, and then that would fix everything. So just kind of scraping up some edge cases kind of is what's going on here. And you can see now we can simulate and play even though there's nothing in the scene. We still have an active scene because it's impossible not to have one. So yeah. No, that's it, guys. That's a wrap. That's simulation. It took about half an hour-ish. So yeah, we can simulate the scene as I was talking about. We can play the scene. We can switch between the states as like crazy. And yeah, I mean, simulate obviously gives us full control, whereas this sticks to a camera, renders from the camera. Yeah, no, that looks great. What else is new? No, that's it. All right. So that's it. That's simulation. Now, what if you hit play and try and load a scene while play is on? Oh, yes. I think that was a crash, wasn't it? There was something like that was a crash. So if you hit play and try and load a scene while play is on. Okay, so let's hit play and then let's load Pink Cube or Physics 2D. No, that actually does work. That was a crash at some point. I think I fixed that though. Now it's coming back to me. It's been 6 months since like the last time I worked on this really. So yeah, I think what happens is it just stops the scene first or something. Or it drops the scene. Is there a load scene? Open scene. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it doesn't need to, because you're kind of replacing the active scene, so it would naturally stop. I mean, it wouldn't naturally stop. That could be dangerous. Not really though. The only thing is if it doesn't call runtime stop, then you're not gonna get your physics being deleted, but the destructor should do that anyway, which it doesn't. We can just chuck that in there, and that's totally fine. Because obviously it does get set to null pointer, which means if we wanted to, we could clean it up just as like an extra protection thing against a memory leak. But yeah, that's kind of it. So I imagine then, if we just chuck a breakpoint in here, I imagine what happens in that scenario is if we did have like a scene, okay, probably like the editor scene or something dying, or a scene. But if we hit play on this, oh no, that was the initial empty scene that died, I think, the blank new one. So we've got that on, that breakpoint's there. So if I now drag in another scene, you can see that one gets kicked off, and therefore this already is null actually. So it looks like it's been stopped. Oh no, I didn't do simulate. Let's try that again. So if I hit simulate and then drag in another scene, I didn't have the breakpoint. Simulate, drag on another scene, then, oh, it's null. So does it stop then? I didn't know it stopped. Oh, it does. I didn't see it. Okay, so it does actually stop. It does actually call stop. Well, whatever. We can try delete it anyway, because if it's null, it's not going to do anything. And that'll just be a bit more clear. All right, that is it. And obviously, initially, it should be initialized to null, which it is. I guess that's it, to be completely honest. Yeah. Hope you guys enjoy this episode. It was a bit of a quick one. Those of you who don't know, this stuff is going to be posted to my second YouTube channel. Well, second YouTube. I actually have a lot of YouTube channels, but it's going to be posted not to my main channel. It's going to be posted to a new channel that I've made called Cherno Unplugged. That's where the new game engine series is going to kind of live, because we're going to be focusing on these kind of longer form, more chill live stream kind of videos. So all that stuff is going to go up there. Yeah, the next big thing that we're going to kind of focus on, I think, is going to be the Vulkan stuff. So we're going to be, I might put up a poll on YouTube, we'll see, but I think that it's going to be time basically to channel link, just Cherno Unplugged. Search for Cherno Unplugged on YouTube. But yeah, I think the next big thing we're going to do for the game engine series is actually kind of take it to Vulkan and implement all of that stuff and rewrite the engine basically. So we're pretty much ready. We might do some more testing, and also, by the way, I've just remembered that I did promise to look through your guys' pull requests and stuff on GitHub. So I will push this code from the physics branch now up, and then we're going to take a look at all of the pull requests and issues on GitHub first, merge the branch into master, obviously, and then that'll give us like a clean slate. Hopefully we can begin doing the kind of Vulkan stuff. That's going to be the plan. Someone said something. Are you going to keep this time slot for all the game industry stuff? Not usually, no. It's actually going to be 24 hours before, so 24 hours back. The reason was yesterday, Monday, was a public holiday here in Australia, Queen's birthday. So because of that, I wasn't like in the office and stuff. So it will be basically Monday evenings, Australian time, around 6 p.m. Australian time. But I will put up a Twitch. I'll put it on my Twitch schedule, so you guys should be able to see what time it's going to be live in your time zone. And then usually, I guess the following night it will go up. Probably the following night. We'll see if I have time to kind of clean it up and edit it. It's going to go up onto that Cherno Unplugged channel. So that is the plan. Thank you guys for joining the stream. Hope you enjoyed. And I will see you, I guess, Monday night. Damn, we didn't even get a day off in the UK. Yeah, but you guys got like the Jubilee thing off. We didn't have that off, so I guess it makes sense. All right, see you guys. Have a good rest of your day. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.